Whether you absolutely adored Red Hot Chili Peppers clashing with Jedi, or could have done without a Hamilton star surprisingly popping up in the closing stages of the Skywalker saga, one thing is certain: each of these Star Wars appearances were all random as hell. So I am Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 of the most random Star Wars appearances. Number 10, Mercedes MONE puts on some BESKAR, the Mandalorian. While a professional wrestler suddenly deciding to give this acting stuff a try isn't exactly anything new, that still didn't change the fact that seeing now former WWE star Sasha Banks / Mercedes MONE sharing the screen with various Mandalorians during Disney Plus's second season of the hit Star Wars show was about as bizarre as it gets. Not only was this the first time a wrestler had been involved in the galaxy far, far away, the star's turn as Cosca Reeves was actually Mercedes Venado's acting debut too. And despite the majority of WWE fans around the globe quickly shouting, "Huh, that's Sasha Banks," at their TVs during her first few minutes of screen time, the boss very quickly settled into life as a badass Mandalorian, even giving the mighty Boba Fett a run for his money during Chapter 16, The Rescue. Even with the crossover star now very much being part of the Star Wars furniture, after appearing in Season 3 as well though, seeing a former SmackDown and Raw Women's Champion blasting around the galaxy in BESKAR will never not be surreal. Number 9, FLEA kidnaps LEIA, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Unlike the multi-talented Mercedes Venado, Red Hot Chili Peppers bassist FLEA had actually shown up in his fair share of other big and small screen projects in his time before randomly stepping into the worlds of Jedi and Stormtroopers. Along with playing himself on a number of occasions, the typically topless rock star has appeared in everything from Damien Chazelle's Babylon to the Wild Thornberrys over the years. But that still couldn't prepare folks for his creepy appearance in Disney Plus's recent Obi-Wan Kenobi series, with the musician playing a slimy bounty hunter by the name of VIII Nokru for a few episodes. Nokru would go on to kidnap none other than a young Princess Leia during his brief time in the galaxy far, far away, before getting mercilessly cut down by the Grand Inquisitor. Very few likely had FLEA holding a lightsaber on their Star Wars bingo card heading into 2022. What a life, eh? Number 8, a royal set of Stormtroopers, Episode 8, The Last Jedi. After deciding one day to stop by the set of The Last Jedi back in 2016, Prince William and Harry secretly filmed cameos for the then incoming Episode 8, and their scene reportedly boasted the most random collection of Stormtroopers imaginable. Alongside the Harry and William, The Dark Knight Rises star Tom Hardy and Take That singer Gary Barlow also both donned the iconic white armor for a scene that ultimately didn't make it into the theatrical cut. However, the no doubt absurd situation that the likes of John Boyega, Benicio del Toro, and Kelly Marie Tran found themselves in the middle of was eventually released when the film dropped on Blu-ray. Hardy was the only trooper to utter a few lines in the ridiculous sequence, boasting a distinctly southern accent in the clip, with the royal lads apparently being stood on either side of Finn during the tense exchange. You will never find a more random elevator stuffed full of royalty, musicians, and British acting talent. Number 7, James Bond pops up as FN 1824, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. That lot weren't the only well-known British faces who managed to oddly wiggle their way into a sequel trilogy film, with a guy who knows a thing or two about holding a weapon also asking if he could make his Star Wars dreams come true when The Force Awakens was in production. After showing up to Pinewood for a costume fitting one day, 007 actor Daniel Craig simply asked Episode 7 assistant director Ben Dixon if he could get a part in J.J. Abrams' movie. And just like that, he was in. Smooth, Mr. Bond. One day later, he was dressed up as a First Order Stormtrooper and being Jedi mind-tricked by Rey, with the majority of folks not even clocking the fact James Bond himself had just been bizarrely fooled into dropping his weapon before their very eyes when watching the movie for the first time. Craig would even tell the Happy Sad Confused podcast that he wanted to keep his rather random appearances going, with the Brits jokingly claiming he asked to be in the next two, but it didn't happen. Number 6, E.T. phones the Senate, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Long before the likes of 007, Bane, and the bloke who sang Never Forget were strangely sneaking into a Star Wars scene, George Lucas opted to throw a little nod to one of his pals, Steven Spielberg, into The Phantom Menace. Queen Amidala's decision to cast a vote of no confidence during Episode 1 is eventually followed by the sight of a couple of alien species within the Senate Rotunda reacting to the announcement, and it's during this moment when a pretty familiar looking set of beings can be spotted waving their arms around at the news. The surprising appearance of these members of the extraterrestrial species here was Lucas's way of returning the favor to Spielberg after his fellow legendary director had chucked more than a few Star Wars Easter eggs into his movies over the years. But rather than find a way to make these little guys a proper part of the galaxy far, far away going forward though, the fact Lucas and eventually Disney would barely ever allude to their existence in this universe again only makes these brief ET cameos feel even more random. Number 5, Jack Black and Lizzo show up on PLEA 15, The Mandalorian. Din Djarin and Bo-Katan Kryze take a trip to a planet by the name of PLEA 15 during the 3rd season of The Mandalorian, and it's here where the two bump into a number of unexpected faces. While the majority of Mando fans would likely agree that seeing the sci-fi legend that is Back to the Future's Christopher Lloyd steal a few scenes as the planet's head of security, Hellgate, was a pleasing enough surprise, for those who weren't made aware of his casting beforehand, the same unfortunately could not be said for another set of cameos. Though many were quick to point out how they loved both comedy sensation Jack Black and music superstar Lizzo, there were viewers that felt their jarring appearances as the eccentric Captain Bombardier and the Duchess of PLEA 15 respectively were a bit too distracting during Chapter 22 Guns for Hire and a piece of stunt casting gone wrong. Both stars did at least seem to be having a blast sharing a few scenes with the Mandalorians and Grogu, but their very much random arrivals definitely divided the folks in this galaxy not so far away. Number 4, Justin Theroux becomes a punchline, Episode 8, The Last Jedi. In the lead up to the release of Episode 8, it was reported that Justin Theroux had been cast in a small but rather important role in Rian Johnson's movie, with the Mulholland Drive actor playing an expert slicer who would boast a pivotal moment in the tale. And sure enough, as Finn and Rose search for the codebreaker the Resistance so desperately need in the 2017 flick, they find Theroux's slicer in Canto Bight's casino. But instead of ultimately working with this particular codebreaker, the pair end up being thrown out of the establishment before teaming up with Benicio del Toro's DJ, and Theroux's master codebreaker was never seen again. This wasn't always the plan though. According to Theroux himself a little later down the road, his character was reduced over the course of finalizing the story, with Johnson eventually telling him a few years after initially calling the actor to talk about the role that this part was essentially a cameo and sort of a punchline now. Theroux was still happy to play in the Star Wars sandbox though, even if his eventual white-suited presence in the picture ended up feeling incredibly random when all was said and done. Number 3, Lin-Manuel Miranda's late cameo, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Hamilton creator Lin-Manuel Miranda actually managed to make his presence felt in the galaxy far, far away a few years before his somewhat random appearance towards the end of The Rise of Skywalker. Back when J.J. Abrams was creating The Force Awakens, the masterful songwriter wrote the tune heard in Maz Kanata's castle, and he also ended up creating some new music for Episode 9 too. So it's not actually that hard to see why Abrams decided to throw a little Miranda cameo into his Skywalker saga ending picture in the end. What makes the brief appearance feel a bit strange though is the fact that Miranda's very much visible for a few moments Resistance pilot, according to Wikipedia, was never seen in any other scene involving said Resistance outside of the victory celebration in Episode 9. Maybe he was just one of the random soldiers who showed up to aid the good guys in their Exegol fight for the galaxy. Either way, there's no denying that seeing the unmistakable talent briefly on screen here was pretty surprising, especially for Miranda himself, with the Tony Award-winning star admitting on X before the film released that his time on set was one of the best days of my life to watch the magic happen, but I'm pretty sure I'm not in it. It was nice of Abrams to not throw away his shot. Number 2, Ahmed Best's unexpected return, The Mandalorian. Seeing a well-known celebrity oddly show up in a Star Wars project out of nowhere is one thing, but witnessing a star who has actually appeared in the galaxy before, randomly returning in a massively unexpected role, is enough to leave your mind well and truly blown. Recently, none other than the star who once helped bring one of the most groundbreaking and very much divisive characters in movie history to screens, AHMED shockingly made his epic Star Wars comeback in the 3rd season of The Mandalorian. Reprising his Jedi Temple Challenge role of Master Kelleran Beck, it was sensationally revealed that Best Jedi was actually responsible for saving Grogu at the Jedi Temple during Order 66. Not a person alive had Beck on their radar as the person who helped this child escape the incoming clone troopers during this dark time in Jedi history. But after being on the receiving end of a ton of hate for his work as the bumbling Gungan Jar Jar Binks over the years, watching the prequel star be sent some long overdue love for this unanticipated cameo was a joy to behold. Number 1, Andy Serkis surprisingly returns and steals the show, Andor. Another talented thespian who first appeared in this galaxy far, far away as a digitally created being, the mesmerizing Andy Serkis famously played the formidable and abruptly chopped in half Supreme Leader Snoke in the sequel trilogy. So it was safe to assume this iconic Gollum, King Kong and Caesar Star's days of appearing in the Star Wars universe were probably over, even if Serkis himself seemed open to the idea of returning as the Force-sensitive Palpatine Strandcast. Then, in a move that caught just about every Star Wars lover on the planet off guard, Serkis only went and suddenly stole the whole damn Andor show last year, playing the part of Kino Loy in the Narkina 5, Nobody's Listening and One Way Out episodes. Serkis was actually a little unsure about the idea of randomly popping back up as a different Star Wars character though, telling THR how his time as Snoke left him worrying that some fans may flip out and wonder what the hell is going on and assume there's some sort of link there. But after that initial shock of seeing the great actor back on their screens as an entirely different Star Wars face had worn off, fans happily sat back and watched the world-class performer produce arguably one of the strongest and most compelling performances in Star Wars history. And that's our list. Know of any other seriously random Star Wars appearances that we've missed? Well, let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if you like this sort of thing, then please head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles, just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always. Thank you very much for watching today, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye bye!